Welcome to CC with BB, Connecting with Coincidence with Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD. That's me. I'm a psychiatrist in private practice and faculty member at the University of Virginia. Each week, my guests and I talk about meaningful coincidences, synchronicity, serendipity. We discuss synchronicity from its many perspectives, spiritually, practically, and statistically. Why? We want to increase your connection to coincidence so that you can benefit from coincidence awareness in your daily life. I've written a book also called Connecting with Coincidence. Put the phrase Connecting with Coincidence in your web browser to find my book, my Psychology Today blog, my website, and social media sites. And just in case you want to know how sensitive you are to coincidences, go to my website to take the Weird Coincidence Survey. You'll find out. You'll get a measure. Connecting with Coincidence. Our guest today is Dr. Brendan Engen, who is a clinical psychologist and lives in Brunswick, Georgia, and works in private practice since 2007. He got his psychology doctoral degree from the California Institute of Integral Studies in 2005. He has an interest in coincidence studies, positive psychology research, and its practical applications for psychotherapy, ancient therapeutic philosophies like Stoicism, Epicureanism, and Pyrrhonian Skepticism, and their relevance to 21st century problems in living. He's interested in ethics, the philosophy of mind, religious naturalism, and the clinical ideas and methods of Carl Jung, Otto Rank, Carl Rogers, George Kelly, and Joseph Weiss. Now, a lot of people are interested in Carl Jung and Carl Rogers and some Otto Rank, but this George Kelly connection for Brendan is not so common. George Kelly was a not so well-known psychologist at Ohio State who came up with an idea, among others, that expectation influences experience. And he said it in a nice way, a long way, that a person's processes are psychologically channelized by the way they anticipate events, that we anticipate all the time. Well, I was looking for a book when I was in college at Swarthmore in the stacks of the library, and George Kelly connected me up with a great coincidence because I found his book, A Theory of Personality, in the library, randomly looking. It jumped out at me the way so much stuff jumps out at people when they're looking for something that they didn't know exactly what they were looking for. So I see this book with a green cover and a little white on it, and I say, Theory of Personalities. Sounds good. I took it home. And I bought the couple of copies of it as I lost some of them and read the first chapter over and over again, trying to figure out what he meant. Well, I was at San Francisco doing my internship and I needed a residency. So I took a ride down the highway to Stanford to interview and talked to Fred Melges, psychiatrist there. And he says, among others, what are you interested in? What are you reading? I said, instead of saying Freud or psychoanalysis, I said, I've been reading George Kelly. Well, Fred Melges' eyes lit up because Fred was writing a book about psychotherapy in the future. Rather than psychotherapy being about the past or even the here and now, Fred was talking about how we are so future-oriented, which is true, and it still doesn't get enough emphasis. So Fred was amazed that I was reading a book that was central to what he was writing about. That got me a residency place at Stanford. A great coincidence, and the kind of thing that happens a lot where one idea from the past helps you somehow in a great way in the present. So how did you get interested, Brendan, in George Kelly?
Yes, well, I first encountered his work in college, and I took a course in learning theory. And even though he's probably not well known specifically as a learning theorist, he had they had a entire kind of segment of the semester devoted to some of his ideas. And I found that his ideas were very refreshing. They were very different than what I was learning about from other learning theorists that were much more behavioristically oriented. And it just seemed very plausible to me, many of his ideas. And And he had a very elegant writing style, which I also was very attracted to. And so I had that experience early on. I continued with my undergrad and graduate work, and eventually ended up in an internship in San Francisco Psychotherapy Research Group, where we were studying the clinical ideas of Joseph Weiss. And Joseph Weiss was fairly psychoanalytically oriented. But what was interesting to me is that I saw a lot of connections between his ideas and George Kelly's. And many years ago, when I was at that internship, I gave a presentation on that. And I think the other members of the group were very intrigued and also were kind of inspired to look into George Kelly. In fact, one psychologist who had a supervisory role said that he could see how Joseph Weiss's work rather, was much more Kellian than psychoanalytic. And I thought, well, that's interesting. But Weiss, like Kelly, had this idea that our expectations strongly influence our perceptions, and especially influence our perceptions of relationships, of ourselves, our decision making. It all kind of comes down to what we're anticipating. And in Weiss's theory, if we're suffering from something that's very psychopathological, we seek out disconfirmations unconsciously of those constructs, as it were. So if we have this idea, for instance, that we're not lovable, or or that in some way we're inherently flawed, unconsciously we'll strive to obtain disconfirmations of those constructs, and sometimes we can be successful, sometimes not. Therapy, in Weiss's view, is largely an attempt to help patients kind of accomplish their unconscious plan towards that end, to find those, I guess you could say, those kinds of healing disconfirmations of very distressing or pathogenic beliefs.
It's also cognitive therapy like.
It is very.
It just goes a little deeper and it's to disconfirm what you think is going to happen,
Yes.
and what you're looking for from someone. And what I wanted to really know from you is how the idea of expectations and experience, anticipating, influences your thinking about coincidences.
Well, I think one thing we know is that there is such a thing as a confirmation bias, which means that we tend to remember things that confirm our expectations. We tend to remember those experiences over those that don't. And sometimes that can create difficulties for us, obviously. So sometimes some would say, especially those who might be much more skeptically oriented, some would say, well, coincidences are really just, or in many cases are just displays of this kind of confirmation bias gone wrong. In other words, we're excluding data from our experience that would actually disconfirm whatever idea or expectation it is that we have. And so, if events occur very anomalously, that are very surprising and interesting, and that are ones that we would consider to be maybe synchronistic or meaningfully coincidental, we'll tend to really focus on those and invest a lot of attention and emotional energy in those experiences. But we might exclude experiences that would be disconfirming to that. And so that would be, like I said, that would be sort of I guess you could say, sort of a standard physicalist response to synchronicity or coincidence. My thinking is that, and I credit you with this, Bernie. Several months ago you introduced me to the work of Rupert Sheldrake, and I really like Rupert Sheldrake's idea that in biological systems, similarities can be reinforced in very mysterious ways. He calls it, I think he calls it non-local similarity reinforcement, and that's this idea of morphic resonance. That so, for instance, if you train a rat to do something in Harvard, um, somewhere else in the world later on in Cambridge or wherever, you may find that the rats there start doing the same thing. There's a similarity, there's a synchronicity there that you suddenly observe. And his view is, and I'm partial to his view the more I think about it, is that in nature there is this kind of, I guess you could say, kind of this memory, if it were. Memory isn't just something in the human mind or in animal minds. There may be a sense in which in nature itself, there's a kind of memory. And our experiences feed into that collective memory. And in his view, then, others can draw upon those memories in kind of mysterious ways. So my thinking is that synchronicity or coincidence may have something to do with that kind of process.
Good. We're coming to the end of this segment, and I'm glad to hear how you are using morphic resonance in this way for us to be able to put it together with coincidences. You're listening to Connecting with Coincidence with your host, Bernie Beitman, MD, on the X Zone Broadcast Network, and our guest, Brendan Engen. We'll be back after a short break.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. Gwilda Wiyaka's latest book, The Science of Magic, Book of Mysteries, Volume 1, is the first book in a series based on her writings that open every episode of the Science of Magic radio show. Drawing on the subject matter of each guest, and armed with over 40 years' experience in shamanism, 35 years in alternative health, and degrees in psychology and religious studies, Gwilda introduces relevant and leading-edge information that supports spiritual evolution and personal empowerment. Rich with wisdom and inspirational quotes packaged in digestible segments, this is a book that will pull you from cover to cover. It will also serve as a daily inspirational reading for years to come. The Science of Magic Book of Mysteries, Volume 1 is available at our website, tsompublications.com, amazon.com, and wherever fine books are sold. Back in Victorian England, a famous theologian posed a perplexing riddle. Why are the two top personalities in the Bible tagged with the numbers 7 and 11? Academics agree the answer is found in the stunning discovery of a hitherto secret Bible structure explained in a new book called The Genesis Grid. The discovery is so simple that preschool children could illustrate it. Certain claims are hugely controversial and may offend some, but at the X Zone, we've studied this awesome new book and agree with one expert, and I quote, "These discoveries appear to be beyond coincidence." So who or what hid this wonderful pattern in the Bible, and what might they do next? Find out more, X Zone Nation, and read reviews on www.genesisgrid.co.uk. That's www.genesisgrid.co.uk.
welcome back to CC with BB, Connecting with Coincidence with Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD. That's me. And our guest today is Brendan Engen, and we are going to dive into one of Brendan's major coincidences, the one that really got him going in this business, thinking about coincidence studies, of which he is now a strong member. And we will go through it and try to demonstrate some of the basic archetypal themes that this long, amazing, hard to understand, hard to explain coincidence tells us about. So, Brendan, please tell us about that major coincidence with you in Spain.
Yes, absolutely. Well, in the summer of 2005, I had just finished my doctoral degree, and as kind of as a gift to me, my wife actually scheduled a session with a trans-channel medium, and it was done.
A trans-channel medium.
A trans-channel medium. It was somebody that she had heard about, and it was. I think she, originally kind of set it up in a joking way, but was intrigued. So somebody, I think had worked with celebrities and so forth, and offered services to the wider public, and so she scheduled this for me, and I kind of reluctantly went along with it. Thought, well, I'll just see what this is all about. And I got into the conversation with this individual, and he talked a lot about, which they often do. He talked a lot about past life material, through some of my past life identities. And one of the identities this individual mentioned is that I was someone who was affiliated with the school of Stoicism in ancient Rome during the time of a statesman and philosopher by the name of Seneca, Lucius Annaeus Seneca was his name. I think he died in approximately 65 AD. And he said that I had been some way or other a student of this philosopher, or at the very least, very much influenced by him, either directly or indirectly. But my impression was that we actually had some kind of teacher-student relationship, according to this medium. And he said that I would meet this person again in the future, in my present life. And he said, in fact, that person happens to be Jeffrey Mishlove. I didn't really know much about Jeffrey Mishlove at the time. I had seen some of his interviews on PBS when he did the Thinking Aloud series.
Now, wait a minute. The medium told you not only that you were going to meet Seneca, but he could tell you who Seneca in the present was.
That's right. He told me that Seneca's present incarnation was Jeffrey Mishlove.
That's far out, man. That's
that
cool.
was really far out, and I thought, well, wow, that's interesting. Of course, there's a backstory to that, because Jeffrey had, even prior to this conversation with this medium, Jeffrey had his own, interesting synchronicities with Seneca, which he talks about. I probably can't really get into that too deeply without going off track, but in any case, I thought, well, this is intriguing.
At least for our audience, we can set it up.
Yeah.
That the medium said Jeffrey Mishlove, and you're telling us that Jeffrey Mishlove independently had made connections with Seneca himself.
That's right. In fact,
and so we know what the story's going to, but that's okay. That's the coincidence already is established that that you and Jeffrey are going to get together somehow.
Exactly.
But we don't know how that's going to happen, and we don't know what the consequences are going to be. Okay,
that's
please
right.
Please continue.
Okay, so I was kind of inspired. I wasn't quite sure if I believed it, or if it was kind of I was very uncertain. But I thought, well, who knows? It could be true. So I'm going to send an email to Jeffrey. I'm going to try to find his email address. I'm just going to introduce myself and tell him, because the medium had told me that I would reestablish contact, and more or less kind of encouraged me to do so. So I thought, well, I'll see what happens. And so I somehow or other I was able to find his email address. This was back in 2005, like I said, and I kind of briefly described the experience, and And I wasn't really expecting a response. I thought he surely will kind of dismiss this or think this is silly, but I thought, well, it's worth a shot. So I sent it off to him, and it wasn't long after that I actually got a reply from him, and he said, "Well, thank you for making contact, and your story is fascinating." And he said, "I have had my own." He talked about some of his own independent coincidence experiences involving Seneca. But then what was interesting is he said, "What's really striking is that I received your email just as I was about to uh, visit Cordoba, Spain, which is the birthplace of Seneca."
He was going to
He
Cordoba
was
to
going
visit
directly.
because it was the birthplace of Seneca.
Well, I don't know if that was the reason, but I
Oh,
presume that had something to do with it. He had a fascination, I guess, with or some strong interest in Seneca and learning about Seneca. But I thought it was interesting that he was going to as I was sending this email off, he was going to the very place where Seneca was. So that started
well, this is timing.
yeah,
This is an aspect of studying coincidences, which, of course, drew Jung. That's what synchronicity meant, which was something happening at the same time, things falling together in time, and things fell together for you and Jeffrey
yeah,
with your email and his visit.
exactly.
All right. So that kind of just lowers the probability and increases the surprise and interest factor. So please continue.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I was very intrigued. I thought, well, this is kind of weird. So I thought, well, I'm interested in kind of learning more. So Jeffrey and I had an email exchange with each other about, what we thought what these experiences pointed to, and he mentioned what he said to me is he said, I don't think I was really I don't think I'm the incarnation of Seneca, to be honest with you, because I don't have any memories of being that individual. And I certainly didn't have any memory or anything of that sort that I could consciously access. But he said that what I think may be involved in that experience is what I call archetypal synchronistic resonance. I was intrigued by that.
Archetypal synchronistic resonance.
Yes, that's the term he used. He introduced that to me, and I thought that's interesting. And he said, my at that point his ideas I don't think were elucidated, and he kind of invited me to work with him and kind of fleshing that out. And so we did so, and that would ultimately turn into the paper we wrote together, which was published in the Journal of Humanistic Psychology in 2007. But what followed that experience, which for me personally, was even more striking, is that a few days after some of those initial email exchanges with Jeffrey, I went to go visit some friends in Walnut Creek, California. My wife and I were living in San Francisco at the time. We had some friends in Walnut Creek, and we thought we'd just spend the afternoon there with them. So we um, uh, ended up visiting a bookstore as we got into Walnut Creek before our dinner with friends. And I was kind of going through the stacks, and of course, I was attracted to the psychology section, and just was kind of pulling books off the shelf. And there's one book there that looked really interesting to me. It's actually a rather beautiful book. It looked new, and it was called The Looking Glass God, and the author was Nahum Stiskin, and I thumbed through the book initially, and thought, well, gosh, this looks really interesting. It was he discussed different themes, but he discussed Taoism and Shintoism, and he also interestingly, he talked about archetypes to some extent in the book, and was applying them to his theories about these different spiritual traditions. But so I thought, well, this is interesting. This is worth a read. But then later, as I was kind of going through the book more carefully, I noticed at the very beginning of the book there was an inscription, and it just stunned me because the inscription was Jeffrey Mishlove. It was his name. He signed his name, and he said, something like, I hope I'm recalling it correctly, but it was the day, I think it was like I want to say it was 1970 or 1971 or something around that time. And he said, Mind's Ear, Jeffrey Mishlove. Mind's Ear was the name of his radio program at the time. He was given this book by the author. He had interviewed the author and wrote this into the book. And that was a really jarring experience, because I thought, well, what are the chances that I would find this book? And I still have the book, as a matter of fact, that I would find this book and it would have that inscription from Jeffrey Mishlove, the person that I just had this weird experience.
Again, a timing thing.
Yes.
Very close together, a synchronistically inspired time.
Yeah.
For you emailing Jeffrey Mishlove, and then for you finding a remnant of Jeffrey Mishlove right there in the Bay Area as you wandered through some stacks, as kind of like I did with George Kelly, finding something of great meaning to me.
Yes.
Now
yes.
we're coming to the end of this segment, and in the next segment, I want to be able to go back and talk about archetypal synchronistic resonance. Just what about Jeff and you and Seneca, and also this book finding thing, and see how we can talk about them as causal and explain them. You are listening to Connecting with Coincidence with your host, Bernie Beitman, MD, on the X Zone Broadcast Network, and our guest is Brendan Engen.
From our broadcast studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, to the world and beyond, you're watching the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
AVS Media Den.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
Welcome back to Connecting with Coincidence with your host, Bernie Beitman. That's me. And we are talking with Brendan Engen, going through a series of coincidences involving Jeffrey Mishlove, an ancient Greek philosopher, Seneca, and our guest, Brendan Engen. Let's talk first about archetypal synchronistic resonances, which you and Jeffrey came to call the connection between Seneca and the two of you.
Yes.
What do you mean by archetypal synchronistic resonance?
Well, archetypal synchronistic resonance has to do with a mysterious relationship or a resonance or congruity, as it were, that is observed between people and events, or between and the people may be distant in time or space. For instance, between Jeffrey and Seneca, or it could be an experience like I just described, where I'm finding a book and I see Jeffrey's inscription, quite by accident, find Jeffrey's inscription in the book, which is a resonance with what I had, just experienced with him a few days earlier. There's some sort of mysterious link between these events and the people involved, and it's hard to surmise. Jeffrey and I argue that that link is mediated through what Jung called archetypes, which I guess you could liken to primordial ideas, or in a Kantian sense, you could call them imagistic ideas, innate imagistic ideas. They're essentially images that are very highly symbolic, loaded with meaning. And Jeffrey and I were convinced that the experiences that we had together involved the activation of certain archetypes. And one of them, of course, we discussed that in our paper. One of the archetypes involved is that of using Jung's typology for archetypes. One of them is the hero archetype, where in this case the hero was Seneca, who was a very interesting character. Kind of did have some heroic qualities. Was an inspiring influence to both Jeffrey and to myself. And there was also a rebirth archetype that we discussed, which had to do with the medium's mention of, reincarnation, this idea that we've come back again in different forms, in different lives. And so we saw these archetypal themes present in our experience together, but we were reluctant to take those archetypes literally. In other words, neither Jeffrey nor I think, believe in the literal kind of reincarnation. Right? I'm not certain that it's not true, but I don't feel like I have enough evidences yet to hold that belief. But I do see that there's something to the idea of rebirth, or coming back again, so to speak. That's very compelling. It's very powerful, and there seems to be some sort of message or some sort of guiding significance that's involved with that idea. And
what about and you're implying this, but let's get to this more basic, I think, description that Seneca was the center of both Jeffrey's and your minds.
Yes.
It wasn't. It was coincidentally have to be explained. It really that you could email him when he's going to Seneca's birthplace, and that he's going there, it seemed, partly anyway, because Seneca was born there, and he already had a lot of, in his mind, connections with Seneca. And somehow your medium was able to connect your mind to Seneca, and together put your Seneca mind with Jeffrey's mind around the time that Jeffrey had started thinking about going to Cordoba. And the reason I'm saying it this way is I'm trying to describe it in simpler terms, because archetype tends to have multiple meanings and multiple emotions associated with it. That if we consider the idea of a psychosphere, that our mental atmosphere, that Jeffrey's mind was already activated in the Seneca direction, had been for a while, and your medium found somehow, and this is the medium's amazing thing here, somehow found your mind to be Seneca related, and then was able to find another Seneca mind out there that was very much tuned in to Seneca right at that time. So to my way of thinking, there was an activated Seneca concept floating around in Spain in the form in Jeffrey's mind, and went up into the psychosphere, or resonated into the psychosphere, and your medium was able to somehow find Seneca-like vibrations in you, and then looked around and found where else they were coming from, and they were very active in Jeff, and was able to put the two of you together because each of you were occupying Seneca space in the psychosphere.
That's very interesting. Well, I like that way of characterizing it. That actually makes sense. I know in the article you wrote recently, in the Psychology Today article, under the category of description, you talk about these mysterious links between mind and thing, or between thing and thing, and presumably also between mind and mind, as you're pointing out just now. And I think the experience that you're mentioning that Jeffrey and I had with each other was this kind of link from my mind to Jeffrey's in some mysterious way, perhaps in the way you mentioned, through the occupying the same space in the psychosphere. But there was also this weird link between mind and thing on two fronts. First, with Jeffrey's receiving the email as he was about to enter Cordoba, Cordoba, and then also in my experience of finding the book with Jeffrey's inscription. And they were all occurring, very closely together in time, which is significant, as you also pointed out earlier.
It's a cluster. It's a cluster. It's a cluster. If you want to continue using that terminology, which I like anyway, mind, and two mind things as a cluster in a relatively short period of time. And when that happens, statisticians are going to have a little trouble, because those are low probability events. And then how do we think about how you found that book? I mean, it's not unlike the way I found George Kelly. There's some kind of, and the idea of library angel has been around for a long time. Arthur Kessler described it, and it's true. Somehow you find stuff in the library and on the internet that you're looking for, and that kind of coincidence where with the media, that is one of those archetypal themes that I list in that Psychology Today blog post that is so common now. It was with books before, and now it's with all kinds of media where what you're looking for somehow you find. And there's a kind of, I call it human GPS, that you picked up the energy of that book. I'm much more able to believe that there's lots of energy around that we can read. But we don't believe that we can, so we don't. but
Right.
it's around, and you were able to highly activated Jeffrey Mishlove concept in your mind, highly activated, and that you were able to scan like I'll say it like an X-ray capacity, look into that whole psychology section and find just what you were looking for, that because that vibration off of what Jeff wrote, you could pick up. That's the way I think about it.
Absolutely. We know what stands out for me too about experiences like this is one almost can't help but think that there's something beyond the self that's involved. I certainly kind of, when you have an experience like this, you come away feeling like, and you touch upon that also in your article, you can often come away feeling like there's something much greater than yourself that's directing you, so to speak, to have these experiences.
This is the fun of this for me. How much, as a therapist, do I say it's your responsibility?
Yeah.
and how, because that's my tendency is to say it's your responsibility.
Yeah.
You did it. But therapists don't believe in big mind or greater mind. I do. I call, some people call it the big mind universe or something like that. I often refer to the little big mind, the psychosphere, which is our mental atmosphere here on Earth. So and there are intelligences in the psychosphere, and they do guide us. And stories like this make you have to think there's some truth to that kind of guidance.
Absolutely. And that certainly was my experience. And I should say that, prior to having that experience,
hold on to that, please,
sure.
because we're coming to the end of this segment. Just hold on to what you were about to say.
Sure, absolutely.
You're listening to Connecting with Coincidence with Bernie Beitman and the X Zone Broadcast Network. And our guest today is Brendan Engen, and we'll be back after a short break.
Named one of the world's greatest psychics, Elizabeth Joyce is now giving readings worldwide via Skype. Elizabeth Joyce is recognized for her clairvoyant ability to help find missing persons, her analysis of dreams, past life regression work, mediumship, and her accurate predictions. Elizabeth has been a frequent guest on the X Zone radio show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, now for several years. For an appointment with Elizabeth Joyce, call 201-934-8986 or Skype at elizabeth.joyce. And for more information, you can always visit Elizabeth Joyce online at www.new-visions.com. The new nonfiction book, Razor of Madness, is similar to cult movies like Clockwork Orange, Dragon's Tattoo, or The Other Side of Hell. Wayne Morin Jr. and Thomas Lee Howe will expose widespread and systematic deficiencies in this thought-provoking tell-all novel. Mind control rages among scholars in law schools. Human rights are ignored while thought reform and mental manipulation are accepted practices used as behavior modification. Dr. Louis Jolyon West comes to mind. Media and public scrutiny shows that United States mental hospitals are in fact destructive murder industries. Razor of Madness expose novel details this epidemic through an in-depth professional and personal investigation. For decades, there has been a revolving door policy that still releases killers and pedophiles back into society. The maestro of mind control continues to haunt America to this very day. Razor of Madness is available in paperback or as a downloadable ebook at Amazon.com.
I'm William S. Peckham. If you enjoy a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love my novel, From Out of the Woodwork. It's the story of a young Toronto contractor, Sean Kennedy, who buys derelict homes, guts them, and turns them into multifamily dwellings. Slums just waiting to happen. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, the house fights back. Former owners unexpectedly come out of the woodwork as he starts the destruction. The apparitions come to him when he touches old books, reads hidden letters, rummages through old boxes. finds a locket or reads a discovered manuscript of a murder mystery. From Out of the Woodwork will take you from 1899 to the horror of the World Trade Center, September 11, 2001. Check out From Out of the Woodwork on my website, www.williamspeckham.com.
Welcome back to Connecting with Coincidence with Bernie Beitman, MD. Our guest today is Brendan Engen, and Brendan and I have been talking about how to explain some of the coincidences with Jeffrey Mishlove, but you were holding on to a thought as we ended. What was that?
Oh, yes. Well, I was just going to say that, prior to my contact with the trance medium that my wife had introduced to me, I really had a very extremely skeptical view of things like this. And, I didn't give a whole lot of credence to a lot of things that were said about experiences like this. But following it, having gone through it, that really changed for me. My perception of what was possible really changed. And as you were saying, earlier, just a few moments ago, I think we can, if we have an overly dismissive view of what we're capable of, we can end up depriving or denying ourselves some of these experiences. And I do think that my experience, initially with the medium and then ultimately with Jeffrey over those several weeks in writing the paper, that it certainly did seem to activate something in me that I didn't really initially believe was even there. So I thought that was rather extraordinary. That was really interesting.
So, this may be one of the better examples of a coincidence, a coincidence cluster that changes a person's view of reality.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that is now that we've been talking about it, I look for examples like this, that a person is walking along through life and then pop, something happens. And as I look back at this, there are several questions to be able to ask you. And the first is, why did your wife do this?
Yes. That's it. Well, she's a very interesting person. I think, like I said at the time, I think she did it sort of half jokingly, so to speak.
But Shakespeare
that was kind of
Shakespeare. I want to say that Shakespeare says we jest in truth.
Yes, exactly.
So what was the truth? What was she trying to do to you?
Well, that's interesting, and I don't know. I think maybe she was interested in seeing how this would affect me, and what I might be able to glean from it, perhaps. And I certainly don't think she was expecting it to turn out this dramatically.
Was she expecting you to start thinking there's more than just psychology thinking, that there's a greater mind out there?
I think so. She had an interest in things like that. My wife is from England, and had been involved, in fact, when she was in London, she had been involved with I think it was called the College of Psychic Studies for a period of time when she was quite young. She was very interested in things like that. She eventually kind of moved out of that area of inquiry, but she's always been very interested in things like that, and open to these kinds of experiences, much more so than I've been, for sure.
And well, it made you more open, and then
it made me more open.
What impact did this experience have on your relationship with her?
It really deepened it. I think
Yeah.
It absolutely deepened it, because I felt like there was something mysterious that occurred that brought us even closer together, that involved both of us, and that she facilitated. And so it certainly made me feel much more intimately connected to her. And in a sense that almost as if maybe she could read me in a way I can't read myself. And maybe that was certainly the feeling I came away with.
I call this marriage enrichment through coincidence.
Yes, that's good. And that's absolutely true. Absolutely. And so that was my wife actually has her work. She's a wardrobe stylist, and a lot of her work is very intuitive to people. She advises them how to dress, what to wear, what colors. And what's interesting is she has her own archetypal system that she uses to help people find their right kind of wardrobe match, so to speak. And many people respond very, very powerfully to that. And but she has this way of looking at somebody and say, "Oh, I see this in you," and that this experience that we had together, I think, certainly gave me that impression as well. That she was seeing something in me that I either wasn't willing to see or just didn't see for whatever reason previously. And so that was very formative.
Yeah, that is very, very cool. And what effect did it have on your relationship with your new kind of Seneca, Jeffrey Mishlove?
It really, I think it really helped us. It certainly helped me kind of find I guess you could say sort of a psychological or philosophical mentor, so to speak, because he was that. And writing the paper together was very helpful in many ways because he helped me clarify my own ideas about things, and in our conversations we've had with each other, he's been very helpful in that way. So even though he's not Seneca, he certainly has had he's had the role of being a teacher to me, in the truest sense, meaning somebody that really can kind of give you the sort of information you need and can help you clarify things very effectively. And he even when I went out to Las Vegas to do the interview with him in 2016, in our conversations together, I experienced that even then. So I came away feeling like, wow, I've learned something new, so that's been very nice to see that relationship develop.
That's that's wonderful, really. Enriches your marriage, finds you a mentor, all through the capacity of your wife to know the right person to pick as a medium for you to connect, and then the medium's ability to put you and Jeffrey together. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yes, absolutely. It's been incredible. It really has been incredible.
And what has this done now to your interest in coincidences? This amazing cluster.
It's really inspired me to continue studying this. I'd like to. I have not been able to do so as yet, but I'd like to be able to interview more people who had experiences like this to kind of understand it, perhaps more so from a qualitative standpoint, to understand features of their experience, especially, and do those experiences similar to what others have gone through who had a meaningful coincidence experience. I'd like to kind of devote a little bit more attention and care to that. And I did a dissertation using a grounded theory kind of research design, and I've considered maybe using something like that ultimately to clarify some of these experiences if I'm able to find people to interview.
They're all over the place.
That's true.
You just have to ask. If you're in a group, I've done a couple of coincidence classes, and people have them. These are common, and we maybe want to find ones that are less common. The media ones are the most common ones. People talk about numbers a lot, and I tend to stay away from number coincidences. I don't know how to interpret them, but I hope you find. I hope you go ahead and do what you just are talking about in some qualitative but systematic way, start examining some of the questions of coincidences that you are most interested in. And I wanted to remind you and tell our audience that I am helping to start a new journal called the Journal of Coincidence Studies. It's online, it's peer-reviewed, and we're looking hopefully for articles that have some research basis to them, so that we can try to continue to make coincidence studies more scientific, more part of mainstream thought and analysis. And a paper by a careful thinker like Dr. Brendan Engen would be a great addition to our journal.
Well, thank you. I'd love to be able to do that. That would be great.
Well, it would be a pleasure to have you do something. We're putting together some papers now. Rob Sacco and I are developing some ideas about what to put in there. And one of the things we want to do is develop a research agenda for coincidence studies. Just what you'll be looking for. And the first step is what you see I've been doing, is developing a taxonomy of coincidences, so that we can talk about them in categories and begin to think about how the content and particularly the explanations vary from group to group, because they do. And not all explanations fit everything in the way that some people like to think that they do. So we're coming to the end of this segment, Brendan. It's been a pleasure to have you with us and hear your careful thinking and your careful articulation of key ideas and coincidences. And I look forward to a possible paper from you submitted to the Journal of Coincidence Studies.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to participate. I had a great.
Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com. Are you, or is someone you know, struggling with addictions, depression, anxiety, relationships, low self-esteem, lack of confidence, grief, success, and prosperity? Do you know that your subconscious belief plays a big role in the outcome of your hard work? We can help you permanently change the beliefs that may be the reason for your struggles and failures. We care about getting you the return on your investment and the results you are looking for. We can help you be free of the limitations of your past and in realizing your highest potential. We work with people by phone and Skype. For more information, visit us at www.ritasoman.com. That's www.ritasoman.com. Do you think you have energy problems in your home? Do you feel better when you're away than when you're home? Joey Korn is a global leader in the world of dowsing who specializes in personal energy clearing and space clearing. He can help you create an ideal energy environment in your home no matter where you live in the world. Learn about his remote spiritual house cleaning services and much more at www.dowsers.com. You can get Joey's book, Dowsing, A Path to Enlightenment, as well as other dowsing books and tools, Kabbalah books, and Walter Russell books. Joey's work is really amazing. Go to dowsers.com right now. That's DOWSERS.com, or call 1-877-DOWSING. That's 1-877-369-7464.